Let's do a little bit more the way of mastery. Now, the way of mastery is the way of the heart, the way of transformation, and the way of knowing. And all these things pertain to the way into the Christ within our hearts as metaphors, the way of transformation from our egoic mind into our hearts, and the way of knowing. I've not come to the way of knowing yet. I'm 194 pages through and it's 440 pages long. But what it is saying so far, speaking from the perspective of Jesus not being God, not being the Son of God, but being sent by God, being risen by God, that stuff is still incorporated. And that in my mind makes it a bit silly, but it is what it is. But Jesus is saying he learned all these things that he's teaching us now. He learned the way of the heart, the way of transformation, the way of knowing, and the way of God, and opening up his heart for God, and all this sort of stuff. And so the previous two chapters, which I haven't done readings on, one of them is titled "You Are Unlimited Spirit." And so it's the realization that you are unlimited spirit, that the world is Maya. There is no reality to this thing. The reality is God. The reality is your spiritual connection to God. The fiction of the human experience isn't the reality. The spirit is reality. And it doesn't speak on why we manifest as human avatars to seek out God. It doesn't speak on that. It's not philosophy to that extent. But it's got the greatest of emphasis on being present and not being distracted and looking into our center. And it's all speaking about the heart as the focal point of love, and finding the Christos within that and living from it and feeding it and nurturing it and giving less and less emphasis and attention to the egoic mind. So you are unlimited spirit. Then the next chapter, chapter 14, the wise use of time. And again, it's speaking about being present and thinking of God, and everything you do is for God, for the relationship with God, and every human you encounter you try to bless and instill love into, and not to be judgmental and deal with the ego. Just forget all about that. When you see a human being, just envision that you're looking at pure spirit, a light being. We've all come to this earth sojourn to find the core essence of what we are, which is God. And so to concentrate very deeply on knowing that, and to be present and mindful all the time. Now, the next chapter, the one I'm on now, love or fear, the choice is yours. So are you going to choose fear, or are you going to choose love? And so this chapter is about conditioning the mind via meditation, prayer, self-hypnosis, into eradicating all of the judgments and the fears and the anxieties, and breeding and creating love, which you then fill your epicenter with and then project back onto the world, effectively becoming a Christ. And everything you do is Christ-like. Now, that's all well and good in an ideal world when people don't have to do stuff that seriously compromises the ego. And there's a great deal of that in modern society. Bearing in mind that if Jesus ever lived, he walked the earth 2,000 years ago when the world was much more simple. Now it's vastly more complex. And so, I'm going to read a little bit here. A meditation to attune to the will and love of God. I'll put my other glasses on for this. So, we would wish then, in this lesson, to begin so gently to direct you towards something which will begin to be offered to you in the coming lessons. What will be offered in the coming months is a methodology for what you might call meditation. It will be refined somewhat and changed to more perfectly meet your calling, but it is a form of communion or meditation that was initially and essentially taught by me, Jesus, to several of my friends, the apostles, what you know as disciples, one of which carried this specific form of teaching and preserved it. Now, it did not originate with me, I merely refined it. So that's a very interesting comment. It didn't originate with me, Jesus, so I'm not all-knowing and all-powerful and God and all that. I'm just a bloke, just like you, and I learned from the Essenes and other people. For I, like you, was once a student of the ways of seeking God, and I dove deep into the nature of consciousness and mind itself, and discovered how to attune the mind, the emotions, and even the nervous system of the body to resonate the perfect will of God. Just let me check that I've got it recording. Yeah, perfect will of God. To begin, to prepare a place for that teaching, we want to suggest for you that over the course of the next 30 days, and we speak here to many of you, that you return to the practice of abiding in as Christ for at least 5 minutes. Now, in previous chapters it's saying just imagine you are the Christ. Just think that the Christ is within you and you and Christ are one. Do that for 5 minutes every single day for 30 days. Now, the second lesson is the meditation. Then, as a 5-minute practice period is complete, allow the eyes to close. Become aware of the simple movement of your own breathing and simply hold the thought. Now you say this: I allow this breath to move more deeply and slowly. Then, beginning to feel that sense of relaxation ever more deeply, hold that thought. So we take ourselves into a meditation, right? As Christ, in perfect safety, I realize all tension. So I release all tension. As Christ is perfect safety, I dissolve my mind in the perfect peace of God. So this is the whole premise of hypnosis, because when I was training to be a hypnotherapist, the whole thing is about making people feel safe enough to relax. So you set the ego aside, because the ego is like a sentry. It's standing red alert and it's always looking out for problems and issues and dangers and this and the other. And that's why most people will never ever relax. That's why they're very hypertensile, or they have anxiety and all this sort of thing. So we have to do this. As Christ, in perfect safety, I release all tension. As Christ, in perfect safety, I dissolve my mind in the perfect peace of God. Then merely continue in this manner, as what you call the breath comes to fill the body gently. Merely say, I accept. And as I breathe, and as the breath leaves the body, gently say within the mind, the love of God. And again, as the breath enters the body, I accept. And as it leaves the body, say, the love of God. I accept 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 the love of God. Now this is very, very similar to transcendental meditation because that uses a mantra. And the mantra invariably is of a Hindu god. It's like a non-word as far as the Western world is concerned. But if you are becoming very, very relaxed and comfortable, and then you're putting yourself under hypnosis, that's what you're doing. You're conditioning your mind. And so what it's saying in this book is that what we need to do, we need to undo all of the propaganda and false thoughts that we've had, that we've gathered up throughout all of our lives. Because this book says that this world is fiction. The only thing that's real is the Christ, the love of God. And so you have to do what the Buddhists have said. You have to peel away the onion layers, and you have to get back to your core in meditation. And here in meditation, it's asking you to release all of that nonsense and breathe in the love of God and breathe out the love of God. Breathe in the love of God, breathe out the love of God. And it's asking you to do this initially for 5 minutes a day, but then it's asking you to do it for an hour a day, for a whole month. And then ultimately it's going to ask you to do it for the rest of your lives. Well, when you do that level of conditioning, then you transform the mind. And so when I was studying the nature of faith, for some time, I was delving very, very deep into it, and I was practicing faith to the best of my ability, and I discovered that I could in actual fact hypnotize myself if I constantly read about Jesus and believed in Jesus and believed in God and believed what the New Testament told me. I could hypnotize myself. I could keep the most prominent thoughts in my mind on the love of God and the love of Jesus and Jesus within me, and then living like Jesus, walking through life like Jesus, being kind and non-judgmental and all this sort of thing. And it asks you to project love onto everybody. And if anybody's done you harm, and if anybody's this and that, you just project love onto them, love onto them, love onto them. And so you are in a constant state of hypnosis. Now, when you do this, obviously, Jesus becomes more and more real. God becomes more and more real. Why? Because God is a thought, is a concept, and the more you engage and envelop this concept into your life over and above all other concepts, then that becomes most paramount. So that's at the forefront of your mind, and so therefore you will increasingly hypnotize yourself into that way of life. And okay, you know, lots of people do that. You see religious people all over the world to more or lesser degrees. And some you see are more pious than others. Many are just pretending. They're part-time religions. You know, they may go to church for an hour of a Sunday once a month, and they may read a few lines of the Bible, or they may do a prayer, but they're not constantly and incessantly imbuing their minds and hearts with the love of God and all that pertains to that. If people want to do that, then they become monks, they become nuns, and they become preachers, pastors, and this sort of thing. If they want to devote their lives in their entirety to it, then you see a different variety of person, don't you, over and above the regular sort of Christian. So I know that that works, and it was working to a degree, and I saw how it works. Now, it isn't no God working any magic called powers on us. It's our own minds. We are conditioning and hypnotizing our own minds into feeling peaceful, into embodying the Christ and the gentleness and the truth and the honesty and the love and the helpful nature and the teaching and all that. We embody the nature of Christ within us, and then we don't feel this agitation of judgment and fear and hate and all these things, because we override those thoughts with love, with love, with love, with love. So it's hypnosis, people. It's absolutely hypnosis, as it's called. And if people want to do that, then fine. But, you know, myself as a philosopher, I'm not interested in hypnotizing myself into some sort of a fiction. I want to investigate what really is going on. And in all my investigations, I haven't found any God out there. Albeit, I do maintain that when I took 3.5 grams of psilocybin shrooms, then Jehovah, and I knew it was Jehovah, chastised me for 3.5 hours for my transgressions against love. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't even believe in Jehovah. Why did I have this so-called bad trip? Which of course was a good trip. It was an amazing trip, because for 3.5 hours the voice in my head, who I knew to be Jehovah, was telling me this is love, that's love, everything's love, every single experience you've ever had has been love, love, love. What's the matter with you, you idiot? How dare you you know, decry my love, the love? And I'm like, fuck. And you know, when I was on the mushrooms initially for the first half an hour, everything was love and it was beautiful. And the mushrooms were saying that the lights love, the baby little lambs with their glowing fleece was love, the blades of grass was love, and all this stuff. And I'm like, holy Moses, because I was really into seeking this love thing at the time. So obviously it was paramount in my mind. And so the mushrooms then, they accentuated this and opened up a portal for me to be communicated with by the egregore, this entity known as Yahweh or Jehovah. Then about 6 weeks later, coming out of a meditation, I had the Jesus egregore speak with me and show me what unconditional love was like. Now, the love of Yahweh was a very fatherly, chastising love. You will obey me, otherwise I will whoop you. If you obey me and I don't need to whoop you, then I will love you. But it's a conditional love, and it's kind of, you know, listening to Jehovah in the Old Testament, it's all very, very conditional and demanding, and you know, he will smite you if you don't beg and bow down to him and all this sort of thing. Well, what sort of love is that? That's what I've asked myself the question. If a God has to threaten you with killing you and all this for you to love him, well, that don't sound right to me. So when you investigate Yahweh, Jehovah, the terminology what the Gnostics use is Yaldabaoth, well, you see that this Yaldabaoth character was the false god. And lots of people say that Yaldabaoth is in actual fact the devil himself, and so all this sort of gets very, very complicated. But you know, this God, I'm a jealous God, there are no other gods but me. Well, if there are no other gods but you, why would you need to be jealous? Because nobody could worship any other gods. But when the Israelites were worshipping Baal, the cow, the golden calf, and all this sort of thing, well, he started to smite everybody and strike them down because he's a jealous God. Well, he's obviously not the creator of the universe or cosmos, then, is he? So we get into very, very dodgy territory when we start looking into all that stuff, people. But one experience I will tell you, I'm always telling you about the DMT. When I take DMT, then DMT absolutely flushes my brain with serotonin, and so serotonin is the love particle as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you ever read Rick Strassman, Dr. Rick Strassman's book called The Spirit Molecule, he will tell you that it's very much like the God particle that people have been looking for, the God particle, you know, because when people take this, well, they enter outside of their ego, and the world, you know, if you do an open eye one, is wonderful. But Dr. Rick Strassman, he had 60 participants, and they were receiving quite a lot of DMT intravenously, and they were under the influence of DMT for about an hour and 15 minutes, and every single one of them came back having seen entities, and some of these entities were crocodiles which were trying to have sex with them, praying mantis type creatures which were operating on them on the operating table, all different sorts of very weird and bizarre stuff, and they all said it was the most real experience they've ever had in their lives, and they weren't fantasizing and dreaming it. No, it was another world, another state of consciousness. Now, one particular day when I was taking shrooms, about 3 grams of shrooms, and I was in my favourite national park. It was a beautiful sunny day like it is today, and I was I had this relationship with this American woman, and the relationship was very, very volatile, and she turned out to be a full-blown grandiose narcissist, but I didn't know that at the time. And what I did know at the time, that she was very, very promiscuous, and always bringing guys back to the house, and she'd even have the audacity just to phone me up her time, 4 o'clock in the morning, to say, tell Aaron this, or Aaron, tell this guy that, and this, that and the other, because she wanted me to reiterate what she was saying and things like that. And I'm like, why are you phoning me up when you've got a strange guy or a new guy that you just pulled from the local bar at 4 o'clock in the morning? What are you doing to me? She knew what she was doing to me, playing me all the time. And so she'd do all sorts of different sorts of things like that. It went on and on and on. But when I was under the influence of these shrooms, I was thinking about her and how promiscuous she is, and under normal circumstances of my ego, then I would be affronted by that. I would be jealous to some degree, I'd be angry to some degree, I'd be compromised in lots of ways with the ego. What the fuck am I doing with this woman that feels free enough to phone me actually at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, because the time difference, she was living in LA at the time, but she'd phone me whenever she wanted to. She didn't give a fuck about what time it was, and I'd go, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. She'd say, oh fuck that, this, that and the other, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, yeah, fuck that. So basically he's saying fuck me, because you just want to say this and you want to do that. Wow, it was always like that. Very, very bizarre, people. But when I was thinking about her and how promiscuous she was and how she was compromising me, and she wanted me to go and see her, and I'm like, what the fuck am I going over to see? A fucking harlot? I'm just being manipulated, this, that and the other. But under the influence of the psilocybin mushroom, it dissipated the ego, and then for about 5 minutes there was a window which opened up to me, and this happened when I saw a butterfly. Let these go. I think it was 4 or 5. So I saw this butterfly. It was a beautiful yellow butterfly, and it was flitting from bracken head to bracken head. And when you're on, you know, these entheogens, little things like that, they just seem so amazing, and you realise that the cosmos is a miracle and all that. And so then I related that to her, and what the butterfly was doing, it was going from one flower or certain bit of bud or whatever, gathering up a little bit of nectar, then it was going to another one, then it was going to another one, then it was going to another one. And we all know the metaphor of the butterfly, the lover that just floats around and tells everyone that maybe he or she loves them, and doubtless they do in their own way. They're enjoying that relationship with lots of people, but they're not committed to one. And if anybody gets involved or overly sensitive or overly attached, then that's a very bad thing with someone that has the nature of a butterfly. But when I looked at this butterfly, I saw, well, that's just what nature does. The butterfly, it doesn't have an ego, and these plants don't have an ego, and it's just procreating, and it's the joy of life, and it's the very essence of life. That's what bees do. Bees go from flower to flower to flower, We use that metaphor also, don't we? But that's what they do, and it's beautiful and it's wonderful. Well, I saw what this woman was doing in exactly the same context, that all she's doing is loving. She's spreading love here, she's spreading love there, she's enjoying love from this person, she's enjoying love from that person, she's enjoying love from this person, she wants to enjoy love from me. But she was lying all the time, because as a human being you can't do that and get away with it, can you? Unless nobody cares, unless you don't care, unless you are the sort of person that goes with prostitutes. And this is what I did for many years, because it was it's much more real and true and honest. So you go with a prostitute, and I had lots of prostitutes which were regular, when I lived in Bulgaria and Africa, and they're not these girls that stand on the street and all this. They're young women, and they're beautiful, and they just act like normal girls, going to bars and this, that and the other. Only when they have sex, they want to get paid for it, because that's the only way they can earn a living, because there's no work for these girls with no education, this, that and the other. A few girls get a cleaning job, but they get paid nothing. Let's say you'd get paid like $10 a day. Well, in actual fact, about $5 a day maximum for a cleaning job. Well, if you had, one night with a Western person, then you'd get $50 or $100. So you see the attraction, yeah. So that's what they do, and it's great. And me and my friend, who was Danish, we had a lot of girlfriends, and none of us felt attached to anybody. He'd have this girl, then I'd have her, and he'd have mine, and this, that and the other, and it was just like one big family. But that was the environment, and so there was no ego, there was no attachment, there was no jealousy and nothing like that, and that was beautiful. But when you come back to regular Western world, well, it doesn't work like that, does it? You expect a partner to be loyal, and you expect them to tell you the truth, and if you start having sex with a guy or a girl, then you don't expect them to be having sex with 5 other people or 3 other people, or they've got a boyfriend or girlfriend. You just don't want this, do you? Because it causes us stress. But however, when I was under the influence of this psilocybin, there was no ego there at all, and I fully understood and fully grasped and fully accepted the nature of what the human beings would be like without the ego. Without the ego, this life is heaven. And so when religions speak about heaven, and Buddhists speak about nirvana and samadhi and all that, that's when the ego is dissipated. In a moment of samadhi, the ego is absolutely dissipated, and all you see is the world as it is, without the ego projecting all of its nonsense which it's had for years and years and years. And so that's the most wonderful and beautiful state I've ever been in, and I've been in this state a good number of times, let's just say at least half a dozen times, on DMT and on psilocybin and in deep states of meditation. When you put the ego aside, the ego is the killer, and that's what this book is telling us to do, to get outside of the ego and get into the heart. The transformation is from the head to the heart. Leave the head alone. And so you guys, you will say to me, "Oh, you talk a good religious book, Aaron. You make all the right sounds, and you deeply understand all of this stuff. I deeply understand all of it. But the point is, what I'm saying to you, the reality of it is very, very different. I'm not a monk. I don't live in a monastery. I don't believe in Yahweh, Jesus, and Jehovah. I believe in human consciousness and human psychology, and I'm investigating all that stuff. But I know where these concepts and things come from, because I've entered into these states of consciousness whereby you can see absolutely where they derive from. And people in the past, they've felt this way, and then they've discovered this, and then they've started to write stuff down as to how they could help other people enter into these states. So when I was watching this beautiful butterfly, I saw her in my mind doing what she's doing, and I didn't have a problem at all, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful, and it was wonderful, and I was perfectly at peace with it. Because the ego wasn't there. But when the ego came back, I started to question it. Wow, how could that ever be a reality? Well, as long as the ego is in operation, it couldn't be a reality. But you see, we can't survive without the ego, so it could never be a reality on Earth, only for very, very small moments. This is why religions speak about heaven being somewhere else, you know, and finding something else, finding this essence of God. Because if you put all this ego stuff outside, then you have this love and this stillness within you. And you know, this is what I'm always saying when we look at love. I mean, love's just a concept, and God's just a concept. And so what I know is that these things pertain to states of mind, and we can bring these states of mind around with certain conditions, with meditation, or just spontaneously, or with entheogens. Every single time you'll bring them around with entheogens. So you have to know then that God is a chemical. What chemical is it that makes us feel so wonderful? It's the chemical in DMT. What is that chemical? Serotonin. And so DMT is in psilocybin, it's in DMT, it's in ayahuasca. The DMT is the compound. And the molecule is almost identical to serotonin. So lots of people say, is God a chemical? And I would say yes. And in my book I wrote about many scenarios like this. I think in actual fact I recounted that exact same scenario where I'm pointing out without any doubt what is going on here, people. So when some of the viewers say to me, oh, love's in the heart, and love is the king, and love is this, and love is that, love is just a fantasy that you create in your own mind. And so if you were, you know, intelligent, if you were philosophical, if you were psychoanalytical, you would know this. But what you've done what this book wants you to do. You have self-hypnotized yourself by telling you, Jesus, 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 and praying to Jesus and reading about Jesus and Jesus, 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 and all that sort of stuff. Goodness me, nobody reads more about Jesus than me. I've been reading about Jesus for years. And I've got another book written by Paramahansa Yogananda about Jesus, The Essence of Christ, and I've already read it once, but I'm going to read it again. Then I've ordered another book, the Gnosis of Jesus, coming from the Gnostic perspective. I suppose it's coming from sort of like the Book of Thomas sort of perspective. So I'm very, very Jesus oriented, but it's not the man, it's the psychology, it's the philosophy, because I know that you don't need these gods. You just need the principle. You need the metaphors. You need the psychology. You need the wisdom. You need to condition your mind. And when you condition the mind, that's then when you'll find the kingdom of God. And that's why I'm always speaking about the kingdom of God. Oh, those bells, they take me out of the kingdom of God. Well, the bells don't really do it. The leaf blowers and the lawnmowers, they take me out of the kingdom of God. Because the kingdom of God is the stillness of the mind. And so when some of you say, well, you can't be enlightened if you've got no idea what you're speaking about. Let me tell you this, people. What you are seeing here is an exceedingly enlightened being, because there's seemingly nothing that I don't know about all of these things. And I've read thousands and thousands of books on the subject, listened to thousands and thousands of debates and whatever on religions and spirituality and all that sort of stuff, and I've had hundreds of psychedelic experiences. I've been meditating for 16 years. I know what the fuck's going on with the human mind, the human brain, the human heart. And so the human heart, absolutely just completely a metaphor. And I've told you in videos where that derived from. It started with Plato and Aristotle and people like that. And then, you know, it just got passed around, and then people started to write about it. And then people started to draw shapes of this heart like this. And I'm hypothesizing that this shape came from the petals of roses or flowers, because look around, you know, so many leaves and petals are in the shape of a heart. And so if you send a girl flowers, then, you know, it's not going to be too long before, you know, you're taking some petals off and you're smelling them. Oh, this reminds me of my sweetheart, and you're pressing them between a book or sticking them on a letter, and then this is your love, because all the flower, you give flowers, you see, so that's a symbol of your love. So then it morphs into just a petal. Then it morphs into just the shape, being red. You know, roses are red, my love, violets are blue, and all that stuff. So if you look into all this stuff, you go back further and further and further, like I have done, then that's where I pull all these pieces to. It's just logic, rational reasoning. With an enormous amount of experience, people. And so I like to keep reading these books just to see what angle they're coming from. You know, I've read so many, and, you know, there's subtle differences. And, you know, I don't know whether I'm actually learning anything, you know, from them. Because seemingly, you know, I've already got a resolve on all that stuff. But so a couple of years ago, I was very deep into Christianity for a whole 6 months, every single day. And I was doing all this prayer and going to Bible classes and speaking to Christians and reading all the books and everything like that, and many different angles from it. And you know, I learned about that. Then I was doing the practice, I was doing the prayer, and I was doing penance, confessions. I looked into what confession is, and, you know, do we need a preacher to free you of your guilt? No, you don't, because, you know, it's just all your own mind. All you need to do is to truly ask the cosmos for forgiveness for your transgressions against whoever, and it's very cathartic. And in an instant, if you say sincerely, you say it to yourself, and your higher self releases you then of the pain and guilt and suffering. And of course, what many people say is when you're starting to go on the spiritual path, go round and see all the people that you've hurt, and then apologize to them, because you soften your heart, you release the tension from the heart, and then you get a resolve on that, and then you become pure. And so you know, all these things, this is what we do. We purify our mind and our conscience, and we call it the heart. So people, I think I'll wrap this video up there. I've said enough on this particular video, and so I'll catch you as and when.